Hey everyone, welcome back to FedBiz Exchange. I'm Michelle Brown, your coach and your mentor. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the third step to finding your federal buyers in USASpending.gov. In step 2, we went ahead, ran the report, and we got to the point where you were about to download. So let me tell you what happens after you download. So after you hit the download button, it'll give you a message when the file is ready. And then when you click on the file, it'll look something like a zip file. When you open it up, this is what you will see. You'll see about 4 files. You click on the one that says Contracts, Prime Transactions. All of the other ones are irrelevant to you. So you click on Contracts, Prime Transactions. After you click on Contracts, Prime Transactions, you'll see a file that looks like this. Now let me warn you, it will look a little bit scary. There are a lot of columns, but I'm going to teach you how to quickly clean it up. It won't seem quick at first, but once you get used to doing it a few times, you'll be fine. I'm going to tell you exactly which columns you keep and which columns you get rid of. But before I do that, I'm going to explain to you what each column is and what it means. So here's how you clean up that messy report that you just saw with all of the columns. You're going to first highlight the column that says total dollars obligated. This is the amount of the contract award. Why do you want to know that? Because sometimes you might need to go back and look at total dollars obligated to see what the pricing was if you're trying to figure out your pricing for another contract. So now you know how to do that. You don't need to bother with the rest of the report, but for the most part, you could use this to at least look at a total dollar amount that was awarded to a contract for 1 year. Number 2 is period of performance start date. That is the date the contract started. Number 3, period of performance current end date. That is the date that the contract will end. Some of you are savvy enough to know that sometimes if you look for contracts and you wait until that contract is over, or you're preparing yourself to bid on that contract the next time it comes around, you would use this type of information. Sometimes you can win a contract and it's for 4 or 5 years. Rarely it's a year or 6 months. Most of the time it is for 4 additional years. That would be the base year and then 4 additional years, which is very nice. And that is on service contracts mostly. Sometimes it's for supplies, but mostly that's for service contracts. Then number 4, awarding sub-agency name. That is so important. You need to know who the federal agency is that is buying from you or will buy from you. That's the most important thing, isn't it? Number 5, recipient name. This is your competitor. Sometimes you want to know this, sometimes you don't really care, but this is your competitor. Number 6, primary place of performance and city name. You need to know this because what if you don't want to do business out of your city or state? If you're seeing most of the contracts in a place that is not where you want to go, you already know you may have an issue, or you need to prepare yourself or figure out, what is my business model going to be? Am I going to do only in-state, or will I consider out-of-state? Something very important that you need to think about. Number 7, primary place of performance state code. Same thing, it's just the state. So they give you the city and state. You may not need both. You can do one or the other. And just as a side note, you don't have to do all of these, but for the most part, I will tell you the ones that are very important. Number 4 is very important. Award agency name, sub-agency. Number 1 is important. Total dollars obligated. Start date and end date. If you just do the start date so you will know what year it happened, that's fine. Okay? Place of performance, that's important. Award description, very important because it describes some of your keywords that you need to use whenever you are doing quite a few things, actually. When you're looking for opportunities, you can use some of those keywords. When you are doing your small business dynamic search, completing it, your capability statement in your small business dynamic search, your capability statement period, your award description is very important. It also tells you if your code that you're using, your NAICS code or even your PSC code, it tells you if you're using the right codes. So if I'm using NAICS code 123456 and I get it on this report, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to show aspirin or medicine bottles for aspirin. But when I see the report and I look at the award description, even though they're using my right NAICS code, and it says something else completely different. Let's say it says medical tape. I would say to myself, that's not what I expected to see with this. Or if I want to supply medical tape, at least I would document that or take a note of that. I might keep the code, but understand what I'm saying. As I said before in the first part of finding your buyers, I told you that your codes are not always what you think they are. That is why we're doing this. Number 9, solicitation identifier. You may or may not need that. A lot of times you only need the solicitation identifier if you're trying to find the old contract. I do that a lot because I'm trying to figure out pricing. Someday you may need to know that. Sometimes they have the solicitation identifier in there, some days, and sometimes they don't. 10, product or service code, or I should say product service code. They said or, but it's both. Your product service code, your PSC code. You know what that is. I talk about that all the time. That is more accurate than your NAICS code. That describes your actual product or your actual service. So you definitely need that one. 11, product service code description. Again, very important because you may be thinking that that code means one thing and it means something else. So you can also use those words under product service code description as keywords. Now, why are your keywords important? They're important because that may be how some of the contracting officers find you. They're also looking at your capabilities narrative in small business dynamic search. So you want to have the correct terms and the correct keywords and also the correct PSC codes, of course. Then your NAICS code. We all know what that is. But your NAICS code also has a description that you may need to use for keywords. You are documenting your product service codes and your NAICS codes as you go through the report. And when I say documenting, I'll show you, you should highlight those codes because what if you don't have any of those codes? Or what if you don't have the product service codes, but you have the right NAICS codes? And they can be mixed and matched at any time. And I know all of this seems like a lot, but it is very important. Most of you cannot find opportunities because you're not using the right codes. Okay? Number of offers received. I love this column because it tells me what my competition is. It tells me if I'm looking at all of these awards in my industry with my codes, and that is me examining each of my important codes at once. And I did not mention this, but you should not be using all of these different NAICS codes at once. Do your primary codes, 2 or 3 of your primary codes to make sure that you're getting the right information. And don't mix them up. Do them one at a time. Don't be lazy. This is something you only have to do once or twice to figure out what's going on. Okay? You can also find new opportunities like this. But the number of offers received always fascinates me because now, I do know most of the time we don't have the competition we think we do. Most of the time, most of us have 5 or less people competing with us. Every once in a while, we will have 10, 15, 20 as a small business. But remember, you're using your small business status. You don't have to use all of your certifications all the time. You are using your total small business status. So you want to see how many people are competing with you. And most of the time you will find, they may have only received 2 offers, which increases your chances of winning. 50% of the game is showing up. When you don't show up, you don't win. So you could show up. That person's solicitation bid could be worse than yours. Their numbers could be off. You could win just because you showed up and did your best. That's what this is all about. Okay, now that I've given you the definitions to the columns that you need to highlight, you're going to start with the first number 1, which is total obligated dollars. You're going to come to your spreadsheet that you downloaded from USASpending.gov, and you're going to highlight the column that says total dollars obligated. And how do you figure out which column is which? You put your cursor on the top cell and you just go across until you find the title of what you're looking for. It'll be very easy. So total dollars obligated is K. So I highlighted that column in yellow. The next one is the start date, period of performance start date. So that one is column U, and I highlighted it pink. Why do I use these colors? Because it's easier to identify what I'm doing. I have a few columns that I need to do. As you can see, you don't have to do all 14 columns if you think one of the columns is not important, but we definitely discuss the columns that are important. Okay, so you're going to go all the way across doing that until you find all 14 or 10 or however many of the categories you would like to highlight. Remember the ones I told you that were important. You need your NAICS codes, you need your PSC codes, you need descriptions for both highlighted. You also definitely need to know the awarding sub-agency, because that is the agency that you will be working with. It's not the funding agency, it's the sub-awarding agency. Okay, so go across and do that for each column that I identified for you in the previous segment. Okay, once you do that, you can get rid of all of the columns in between. You can either highlight and delete them, or you can hide them. It's up to you. And that's it. That's how you clean up your report. Now I want to show you what your cleaned up report will look like. Finally, we have a finished product, and this is what your report is going to look like. Now, if you don't like colors, after you clean it up, you can take the colors out. I love the colors. They help me identify what I want to identify, and they make reading this report fun. So you can unhighlight the colors if you want to, because you will have a full report and you can identify what you need to identify. But the colors really do help. So this is your final product. In the next video, your 4th step, I will show you how to analyze the report. Okay, see you in the next video.